Hey guys, Youngblood with you for a fairly momentous occasion, that being the 50th episode of the Inbox. So I'd like to go ahead and thank everybody for getting their questions in. It's been a lot of fun doing these answers, and hopefully you guys get a little something out of it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start off with a question from Jeff Hardy saying, Youngblood, can you fit an M50 in the cargo hold of a Connie instead of the P50 used a M50 in its place? So the P52... the Merlin is actually in the back. It's got its own dock that doesn't actually fit in the cargo hold. It allows you to carry cargo and the ship at the same time. With that in mind, though, as far as an M50 fitting in the Connie right now, it does not fit. The wings are a little bit of a problem, so it doesn't actually get too snug in there. However, if you want to carry something around, a Dragonfly or two should fit in there no problem, and that would give you kind of an option for a little runabout. Although it's going to be nowhere near as combat effective as something like a Merlin would be. So technically, the answer here is no, but you've got some other options if you want to get flexible as far as what you can carry around. Field Smith says, got another question for you, STLYoungblood. Do you think that the devs will change how we exit quantum travel? I was playing with my brother just the other day, and when we both jumped from the same comm satellite to the same asteroid field, I rear-ended him exiting my jump. It seems that the preset exit point for quantum jumps are too close together if you're traveling from the same starting point. P.S. Even though we collided at astronomically high speeds, I still made it out alive, my brother not so much. So I think they're going to have to make some changes, especially once we start getting more populated space. I mean, if you consider right now we don't even have NPCs, and we know NPCs are going to be 90% of the population or so, and we're playing on servers with a cap of about 24, they're going to have to do something. So I think they'll probably institute some in-lore type of decision here, probably along the lines of saying, your computer is able to scan ahead and it drops you out at a predetermined location that's going to make sure you're not rear-ending somebody. So, there may be a popular destination and ships may be coming in like pop, pow, pow, pow all over the place, but I don't think you're going to necessarily end up rear-ending somebody like you do today. And I've done that, and it's actually been funny. I've chased some people that have been fighting and actually killed them when I've jumped in and landed right on top of them. I've also jumped in, landed on top of them, and died myself. So it is kind of frustrating the way it works today. There's no way that's going to be the final system. Another thing that could potentially be done is they might say something like your nav system is able to detect the amount of traffic that's going through there, and it may delay you by just a little bit to make sure that you have enough space between who you're landing or where you're jumping into. So there's probably something they can do, but I think ultimately what it'll be is like some sort of like cone system. You fly in a straight line until you get close to your destination, and as you slow down, your ship automatically navigates left, right, up, down, somewhere within a predetermined cone where there's not anybody else occupying that space. Irene X says, is the jump point going to be some kind of flight test for pilots instead of some loading screen or something? So, there's not going to be any loading screens in this game. That's their goal. They want it to be all very seamless. Now, as far as the jump point actually being some sort of flight test for pilots, I'm kind of under the impression that if you're plotting a new jump point, you're going to have to actually kind of do what we've seen in that like Gladiator teaser, I guess, where it's flying through the jump point. I think that's what the experience is going to be for a new jump point, is you're going through and plotting it. It's going to take some skill. It's probably going to make sure that you're not like flying out of it or crashing into little like columns that come up. I don't think that's going to be your normal jump experience. I think once a jump has been plotted, it's probably going to be more automatic. You line up, you charge up your engine, you jump through it, and you just kind of cruise through there. It's not going to be a loading screen, but it's also probably not going to be super interactive while you're in there. I don't know. We don't have enough information to really talk about that too effectively, but I don't think it's going to be like a flight test type of category unless you're maybe charting your own jump point. Dragon Templar 4 says, hey Youngblood, with atmospheric drag affecting certain ships, how will drag affect capital ships in atmosphere? Will they drop like a rock, or will cap ships need to rely on VTOL thrusters? I think when we talk about this, big ships generally mean big engines and big thrusters and big, primary thrusters. So with that in mind, I think they probably have the power that's necessary to mean that they're not going to drop like a rock. Now, they're not going to cut through the air like a plane-shaped ship like a Gladius is going to do. But I think they would at least have enough control on their way down. Now, with the capital ships, there's different ones. We know the Polaris is going to be able to land on planets. I think the most recent thing I've heard is that the Idris should be able to land on planets as well. I don't know about the Javelin. I'm pretty damn sure the Bengal's not going to be able to land. So I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a slow, controlled descent. it's not going to be like you're falling out of a rock or you're burning up on entry, unless you're in a ship that's not actually meant to land. So like a Bengal, for example, wouldn't have the functionality to actually be able to control a descent, and it may crash into the planet in a big fiery mess. In fact, I think there's actually some lore from one of the planets. Maybe this is the Banshee system. It's one of the kind of darker systems where a Bengal actually crashed on a planet side. So to kind of answer your question in a more short and concise answer, they're not going to fly, they're not going to be super agile, but it's not going to be just a free fall. It's probably going to be very controlled and deliberate. This is where I want to land. The computers are going to help me do that. Black Dream Hunk 2 says, are you ever going to do a should you buy on the 890 jump video or talk about the 890 jump? I talk about the 890 jump. You know, when I talk about like touring ships or luxury ships or even command and control ships, I talked about the 890 jump. But as far as a should you buy video, the problem with that's kind of like doing a should you buy on the Phoenix. You know, when there's only like 400 or 2,000 or 8,000 or whatever there are, it's a limited ship. It went up for sale once and I think maybe one other time, and it hasn't been for sale since then. I mean, it's been 2 or 3 years since we've seen a sale on the 890 jump. So it's one of those, yeah, I could do a should you buy video, but at the end of it, it would come with this disclaimer of, you know, yeah, sure, maybe you should buy the 890 jump, but you can't. So I think when we get to a point to where you can start buying ships in game and I can actually fly them and see them and test them and those sorts of things, then yeah, something like a should you buy on the 890 jump wouldn't be a problem. But right now, it just wouldn't make a real constructive video. Bam Mitchell's 8 says, do you think Drake will make any sort of Millennium Falcon style ship? I think they have 2 ships that are sort of Millennium Falcon-esque. You know, the Cutlass is kind of a smuggling vehicle. It should be able to actually, you know, kind of take on some of that role. It's kind of got a rogue feel to it. You know, it's even got kind of a similar shape if you look at it. But I think the one that's probably more in line with what the Millennium Falcon is, probably from a size perspective, would be the Caterpillar. You know, it's got different rooms in it. It's fairly large. The Millennium Falcon is actually a cargo freighter. That little notch in the front is meant to be able to push cargo containers. And if you think about what the Freelancer is, you're pushing for containers in front of you. So I think in conjunction with the role, the design, the cargo containers, almost being kind of notorious for being up to nefarious activities, I think the Caterpillar is probably the closest thing in the game, in my mind, to the Millennium Falcon. Even though I've heard some people say that, like, I guess from their perspective, the Constellation is more in that category. But from my opinion, it would definitely be the Caterpillar. And for our patron questions today, and just a reminder, if you want to become a patron, you get your questions answered a little bit faster. But Rumpel is our first one here. He says, okay, here's one that I've been circling around in the back of my mind for a while now. Once everything goes full on live and things like insurance, crime stat, cold hard cash, and resources, not to mention permadeath, really matter, how badly will people mostly sit around shooting each other, crashing into things to watch the explosion shit their pants? You know, once respawning your ship doesn't repair, restock, and refuel it, and logging out doesn't sign arm back up. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a cold, hard reality check for people when we actually get true persistence. I mean, we've got some persistence today, but it's only as good until you get to the next patch. And, you know, there's not any real penalties as far as using ballistics weapons over energy weapons. And there's a lot of different factors that go into it that people are going to have to adjust to. And those that don't are going to shit their pants because they're going to have a cold, hard experience. So things like reputation, I think, is where it's going to make the biggest impact. If you act like a jerk in the persistent universe and you're penalized by having a negative reputation and you can't get good jobs and it kind of forces you into a certain type of gameplay, that's what's going to really change the way people actually play. So some people are going to love to do that, and they're going to love kind of playing that rogue, but other people are going to be dissuaded by that. It's a heck of a deterrent if all of a sudden your life in the persistent universe becomes harder because of that. So I think it's going to depend on the person. I think some people are doing it today because they're bored. There's not a whole lot to do right now. So for some people, I think they're just looking for other things to do, and sometimes trolling falls into that category. But yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a big adjustment there. And for our last question from Ian, says, I have a quick question. 2.6 is later than most thought it would be, including yourself, unless I'm correct or incorrect. Do you think that this will affect the release of 3.0 in any way, shape, or form? 2.6 is later than I thought. You know, it's currently, there's some aspects of it that are currently being tested with the Evocati. You know, as far as where we're at with like Star Marine and the Herald and the Hoplite and all that other stuff, and us actually being able to fly it. Yeah, it's definitely later than I think we all thought it would be. I have this kind of question as well, as far as what this does to 3.0. You know, I think we could look at this a couple different ways. A delay is a delay and it pushes everything else back. That's probably having an impact in some way. That being said, 3.0 is including so many different things that it's going to be having an adjustment to, or you're going to have different people that are working on cargo and piracy and bounty hunting. Like, those game mechanics are probably being worked on by different people than are actually working on Star Marine and developing the new ships that are going to be in 2.6 and the flight model that's being reworked and all that kind of stuff. Since they're different people, 3.0 may not end up being delayed as much as we all think it's going to be. You know, it's probably not going to be 2.6 is released and then they start on 3.0. 3.0 is probably being worked on today. The question is more so how much of their resources are split and where are they being allocated. So I think we're going to see it be delayed. It's probably just not going to be as bad as we all think it would be. So that's it for the 50th episode of the Inbox. Again, thank you guys for getting in the questions. It's a lot of fun to do. If you have questions of your own, get them in and we'll try and get them answered soon. Otherwise, have yourselves a wonderful day and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.